What's up, people? This is Arslan. So, the Ben 10 issue 2 has arrived. So there's a lot more interest in this new Ben 10 series than I was expecting. So of course, it's a no-brainer that we will be back covering the second issue. And let me tell you, it gets just more grotesque, more mysterious than ever before. In which, yes, this new series, this new quote-unquote absolute Ben 10 is taking a lot more liberties with the lore. And frankly, it's pretty cool and exciting to see though. So with Ben off in the woods dealing with the Omnitrix troubles and Grandpa Max also off trying to find him and figure out what's going on, that leaves Gwen here in the RV alone, which she decides to do some digging of her own. Of course, taking this time alone to snoop around and get into stuff she really shouldn't, until she finds a secret compartment of the RV and gains access to Grandpa Max's super advanced technology in this very inconspicuous-looking older RV, of course revealing that Grandpa Max has a lot more ties to maybe the plumbers or things more advanced, and he's leading on, which we will get to see a little bit more of that soon. But for now, Ben himself is just causing a ruckus as heat blasts just lighting trees and unable to even control himself. He is completely confused, freaking out over the circumstances, as one would, suddenly turning into these monstrosity of creatures. Most grown adults would freak out, let alone a 10-year-old child. As he even questions this himself, he just doesn't get what's happening. One moment he has 4 arms, and now he is this lava or fire creature. And a few of those lore changes, like I said before, they are really leaning into this version of the Omnitrix being a prototype, a very unfinished and defective almost, I would say, piece of technology. Because just then, when it glows red, the de-transforming stage, it doesn't just turn him back to human cleanly like the original series would imply. Instead, it's almost painful as it starts to morph his body, change his very DNA, change his body structure from this fire-hulking creature and just mixing him up into different transformations, going from heat blast to upgrade to gray matter, stinkfly, like it's all mixing into one, and not only looks very painful and uncomfortable, but it seems like the device itself isn't fully working at peak capacity, as even now transforming into Accelerate, with Ben's face just kind of morphed into the creature itself. Like, yeah, this is definitely not the instant transformation that the original series depicted it as. And even once he fully does transform back to his, little kid self, he kind of starts to break down a little bit, as you would. This is pretty traumatizing, which is in stark contrast to the original version, because yes, he was confused and a little unaware of the situation, but he caught on quickly and adapted fairly almost unreasonably fast. Whereas here, he's breaking down, crying on the forest floor of everything that is suddenly happening to him for seemingly no reason at all. And knowing the Ben 10 story, it's only going to get worse and more confusing from here though. Not only with Ben Tennyson, but also Grandpa Max as well, as he's wandering through the forest as well, trying to find Ben and whatever is going on, until he stumbles upon a full military operation. Now, of course, they spot him, so he can't just hide and act like he was never here. So he decides to lean into it and approach. It turns out, Max here, Grandpa Max, has max-level clearance. He has had some role or some function or a top-level position in the government beforehand. So he's not just some random civilian wandering through, which of course just makes things even more suspicious for the military here. They're dealing with this alien threat and new mysterious circumstances. And oh yeah, this random max-level clearance guy just comes in and, is seemingly wandering through the forest while camping as the leader or man in charge, a Colin Orosum. He even starts to question Max on this himself, saying that him turning up here, it seems to be one heck of a coincidence or accident. Though it's never explicitly said what or why Max already has government clearance, of course we can infer that it's his dealings with the plumbers, or whatever the equivalent here in this version of Ben 10. But it's never given a concrete answer, and it's kind of beat around the bush, which just makes me assume that they're going a slightly different way than it has been portrayed before. Though with that, we cut over back to Ben, who is, back on his feet, trying to just get back to anybody and anything at this point, and he even says that he has to get this thing off of his arm, until he looks up again and sees something else streaking down the sky, coming very close to him. Now, of course, he's not going to make the same mistake twice, because him going towards the falling meteorite is the thing that got him in this mess in the first place, so he's going to put as much distance between them as possible. Though don't be mistaken, this isn't another Omnitrix or anything of the sort. No, this is a person, a creature, as soon as it lands and opens up its shell, it's an armored, metallic, almost half-machine cyborg of an alien creature. Now, of course, we can pretty safely say that this is from Vilgax himself, much like in the sense of 2012 Avengers, instead of Thanos coming down himself to find the Infinity Stones.
Instead, sent Loki and an army. Same thing here with Vilgax. Instead of coming down himself to get the Omnitrix and retrieve it, he's going to send in a very powerful person in his place to do the dirty work for him. Now, at the same time, though, you have to remember, the military is actually tracking and picking up on the special sort of frequency or signal that the Omnitrix is giving off, so they have a constant UAV on Ben all times, as eventually they get close enough where Ben is like Ryder around a tree hiding from them. Now, of course, he eventually does make a run forward and is able to put some distance, but just then they start getting more signals and more reports of another entity somewhere nearby. So, of course, with them thinking that's their target and the thing that they're supposed to be tracking, they instead go over to deal with that. All while something very interesting happens to Ben, again, because it seems like this version of the Omnitrix, which is a very interesting design, mind you, it's like very alive, organic, and vine-like, but it starts to activate and transform him on its own, which was never a feature in the original prototype Omnitrix that Ben would have up to this point. Instead, that was a later feature introduced and added to the official Omnitrix to be able to automatically transform Ben into whatever form fits the situation best. But here, Ben explicitly is saying no, don't, trying to stop the watch from activating again and putting him through that painful transformation. But, he has no real control over it right now, as it fully does, and we see Cannonbolt for the first time, who is largely the same, give or take some designs. But Ben, of course, is going to capitalize on this transformation and use his Cannonbolt abilities to quickly get out of there as fast as he can, rolling into a ball and bouncing away. Now, back over with Grandpa Max and his military operation, we see the Colonial here still kind of grilling and pressing Max about his story and how things are just not adding up, and are under very suspicious circumstances, until he gets a report that his men have found a new target and they're preparing to engage, which kind of makes it worse for Max, because they want to keep him here and not just let him roam free and get away, because if he has any involvement in this, which he doesn't technically right now, but if he did, they want to know everything he knows about this, which is bad for Max, yes, but even worse for these military guys here because they are just woefully unprepared about what they're about to face and just how outmatched the U.S. military is compared to Vilgax and his entire army. As eventually, yes, they find this new signal and this new life form and start to open fire, which of course their bullets do less than nothing, bouncing off of the alien's armor, as he even goes on to say, an insignificant firepower. Though it makes me curious how you will deal with mine, as he rushes in and starts to destroy everyone here, like to a laughable degree, cutting people in half with his bare claws before stepping and impaling another one. Meaning, yeah, this series is not shying away from the violence and death that obviously would happen in a world about, alien invasions and alien powers and whatever have you. Though all these guys just clearly have been, dismantled and murdered. Ben, on the other hand, is desperately trying to get back to safety and back to anything he previously known, rolling around and finally getting back to the original campgrounds where he ran away in the first place. Though, to his surprise, there's nobody there. There's no Grandpa Max, the RV is gone, and Gwen by extension, until he sees a bright light coming from behind him, thinking that, okay, maybe it's someone who can help him, until he turns and sees that it's the full RV charging at him at full force, clearly and very purposely trying to run him over. And as we see, it's Gwen herself doing the driving, and not knowing that this alien creature, or monster as she even goes on to say, is Ben himself, specifically saying that no alien monster thing is going to invade this planet, not on my watch. So either whatever controls or whatever information she found in the database in the RV just made her knowledgeable about things that Grandpa Max knows and aliens or whatever have you, or, she's just a very brave 11-year-old and has no fear about this creature and is very clearly about to kill it if need be. Which also kind of makes me very curious about where they're going to go with Gwen's character in relation to her magic or maybe even her anodite alien forms and powers and abilities. And with them changing so much about the Omnitrix and Ben's original adventure, who knows where it can go from here?
But that is something that we're going to see next time. So that's all for this issue. Let me know your thoughts and comments. If you have enjoyed watching, leave a like or subscribe my channel. All right, guys, I will catch you all later. Bye.